And we're back on Freshwaves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We're speaking today with Anand Date. And Anand, you are very involved with the Stouffville Food Bank. Tell us a bit about that.
Sure, yeah. I first got involved with the Stouffville Food Bank many years ago. I used to take my daughter there and we would donate food and funds. And eventually I became the chair of the food bank for a number of years. We completed a move to more downtown Wichard Stouffville a couple of years ago. We're coming up on our second anniversary. And some latest news is that as of last year, we doubled our openings. So we used to be open for 25 plus years, once a week on Wednesdays. And unfortunately, the demand for food bank support had increased to the point where we decided to open a second day, which was a logistical challenge. We are run by 100% unpaid volunteers, but it takes some time to acquire the food, to sort it, to distribute it, and to get ready for the next opening. So we were up to that challenge, and as of a month ago, I've actually stepped back a little bit from the chair position, and we have two new co-chairs who are doing a terrific job, Susan Smith and Julie Stevens, who are very active in the community. And together as a board, which I've also doubled the size of our board, we feel well positioned to react and to assist during this COVID challenge.
Wow. Okay. Tell us a little bit about the COVID challenge. I know that certain organizations, like ones that would take used clothing and things like that, are not doing so because of fear of contamination. So are people still able to drop food items off at the food bank, or is that not happening right now?
Yeah, so the quick answer is yes. We are still able to take food deliveries at the food bank. We are able to go and pick up food items if necessary. We have very strong, decades-old relationships with businesses in the community where you could drop off food there instead of at the food bank. So No Frills, Metro, even the local fire hall. We have been in constant communications with York Region health officers to make sure we are following, at minimum, the protocols that they have put into effect in terms of cleaning, using sanitizers, using masks and gloves, and physical distancing. And I'm really proud to say that we had initiated all and more of those protocols well before we were asked to. So I'm really proud of the volunteers and the board of the food bank to rise to the challenge. But I'm also very, very thankful to the good people of Wichard Stouffville who have gone above and beyond to support the food bank in this crisis in terms of financial donations, food donations, gift cards. The food bank is not just giving out food. We do have expenses. We have rent, we have insurance, we have things that we need to cover. And we've been tremendously supported by the community, which I guess I really shouldn't be surprised, but I'm certainly very thankful.
That's wonderful. So if people have actual food to donate, how do they go about doing that during this pandemic?
They could drop it off at Metro. They could drop it off at No Frills. They could drop it off at the fire hall. They could drop it off at the food bank as well, but we ask they come during the hours where either we are open or our volunteers are restocking. So information on that can be found on our website at wsfoodbank.ca. Or you can give us a call. Our number's on the website, and I can provide that information for you to distribute if you could.
Okay, so it's wsfoodbank.ca. That's your website?
Okay. Yeah, it's wsfoodbank.ca. I should also mention that if you contact the food bank number, and many people have my cell phone number, we'd be happy to arrange for a social distancing appropriate pickup.
Okay. Now, what about monetary donations? I was just asked by a resident about making a monetary donation at this time. How do you do that?
Monetary donations, first of all, are incredibly valuable to us for a number of reasons. To answer your first question, how do we do that? You can do that online in our donations page at wsfoodbank.ca and go to the donations page. That's probably the easiest way to do it. We also accept checks. You could even do an email transfer to our email address, which is wsfoodbank1@gmail.com. And then there'll be no service charges for those transfers, at least service charges charged to us for those transfers. We do have a number of schools, groups, businesses, as well as churches that are donating cash funds, which I'm able to pick up when necessary and get it directly into our accounts.
So what do you use cash donations for other than rent and telephone?
The interesting thing, I redistributed an article that was not written by me, but the title of the article was alluding to the ease of assisting food banks by providing a financial donation, because we have decades-old relationships with the vendors in town. On top of sale items, we receive another discount as a charitable organization. So $10 donated to the food bank could help us to purchase $12 of fresh or perishable food. Whereas if you were to take your $10 and go to purchase food, you would only get $10 worth of goods. So in our hands, we can actually stretch your dollars further. Your money is eligible for a donation receipt. The other benefits that we encounter are for storage and perishability. Much of our operating cost goes into the cost of maintaining a warehouse. We need space. We have to lift heavy boxes and heavy items. We need to sort through best before dates and expiry dates, which are two different concepts on food products. If we are to receive donations, we can just in time deliver the food that is required and make adjustments as we go along. It is tremendously valuable to us. We don't want people to think that we don't appreciate all donations that we get. We certainly do, but there's some definite benefits for monetary donations outside of just helping us pay the rent and pay our insurance.
Okay, so in a lot of ways right now, perhaps it is really to your advantage if people are doing more monetary donations.
It is also certainly safer from a health perspective to donate online. So when people do donate, we do sanitize all of the items. We respect the physical distancing. I think you've seen some pictures of me kind of outside with a big bin and picking things out of car trunks. But to have a monetary donation would help with the health aspect of what's going on right now and combat COVID-19.
That's fantastic. So what are the plans for the Stouffville Food Bank going forward? I mean, I look around this town and I see a pretty affluent town. It's not one of the towns that you drive into and think, wow, this town could really use a food bank. So is there still an ongoing need for a food bank in Stouffville?
Sadly, there is. Yeah, we made that decision to open a second time during the week almost 2 years ago, and we are still seeing our numbers climb. So as the population of Stouffville increases, we do expect that the number of individuals using the food bank is going to climb. We have had some extremely busy days where we're almost unable to reach all of the people who have showed up at our door. Going forward, we are in close communications with some of our other food banks in the region to find out what's happening with them. The reports so far are that there's been an increase in the usage of their food banks in Markham and Richmond Hill and some of the other areas. But we also track if they're repeat clients or new clients. And we're starting to see an increase in the number of new clients, which tells us that there are some people who are new to needing some food support. And this is something that we've been unfortunately anticipating and planning for. And we think that will be on the rise as this COVID situation continues.
Okay, that's kind of sad to hear in some respects that it's on the rise.
It is, and it's challenging for us as volunteers. We want, we're giving of ourselves to make sure people are looked after, and to see that the need for our services increases is hard for our volunteers, but it also motivates them as well. We feel like we are doing very good work. We feel like the services are needed, Our clients that come to see us, whether they be existing clients or new clients, are very, very respectful. They are understanding now that we have a different operation. No longer is our waiting area used. Clients will have to wait outside or in vehicles. There's a numbering system. We are rationing a little bit our food, whereas before we were able to be quite generous. Now we are making sure we're paying close attention to our supplies because we want to be prepared for any contingency. Hopefully, we are out of the situation sooner rather than later. But if it does drag on, we feel we need to be in a position to continue to provide food support for as long and to as many people as we can.
Now that we've actually been in a pandemic situation, because for you and I, we're not old enough to have been through World War II and the depression that happened then. So in our lifetime, we have not been, if you lived in Canada or Stouffville area, you have not been in a situation where there has been any food shortages of any kind. So now we've learned a few things. I mean, we have not yet been in a position where, you know, we're treating this like the apocalypse and there just isn't any food. The food is still coming in, the supplies are still running. But as we have seen through this pandemic, airports can close, borders can close. We can be in a position in the fall, if this goes through a second wave, where we may have food shortages. Forget about the toilet paper, that's a whole other show. But there could be. We're now hearing that when the meat plants in Quebec, 2 out of the 6 that are the only meat processing plants in Canada were infected with COVID, they shut down for 14 days, which doesn't sound like a big deal. However, it did affect the supply of meat to all the grocery stores across Canada. So we know that this can happen. We know it's a thing. Will you at the food bank be now taking different measures to build up for the potential of a second wave in the fall?
Yes, and we have been doing that for quite some time. So we are very discriminating and discerning shoppers as well. So we do try and stretch the dollar as far as we can. We are just in the process now of accepting some additional donation and actually food support from some new sources, which I have a board meeting on this next week. But we are using some of the resources that we've seen in terms of an increase in our donors to purchase some refrigeration and freezing equipment so that we can start to manage our resources and switch a little bit to some less perishable resources that we can keep refrigerated and frozen for longer periods of time in an effort to be prepared for contingencies such as shutting down of beef plants or fresh meat plants. We certainly are very careful that we don't over purchase. We don't want to be in a situation where we're taking away from other people who need it. And that's why we're working very closely with the local vendors to make sure that we understand what it is that we can use for our inventory and what needs to remain on the shelves for others.
Now that they've reported record numbers of people having lost their jobs, we know that once the restrictions ease up a bit, some people will have their jobs back, but we know that there's a lot of people who are going to be newly unemployed. Does this give you guys pause at the food bank to think that you may have to be stocking up?
Yes, it does. We talk about food uncertainty. So, in many cases, it's a temporary situation for especially newer clients that are coming to us. They have to make some tough decisions between support for their children in terms of entertainment or education and food or rent or some other area. So if one or two of those areas can receive assistance, it could help to continue some semblance of normalcy to their lives for the other areas. So we do feel strongly that we want people to reach out to us if they feel food support can assist them in other ways. So we don't want people to feel that they have to sacrifice food for something else. We can help them look after their food uncertainty so that they can have the funds available for some of the other things that any family might need at any given time.
Okay, I have a question from one of our regular listeners, and what she was saying is that the grocery stores, by and large, are making record-breaking profits right now. They've never seen profits the way they are right now. Loblaws has just announced their profits for the first quarter of the year, and it's staggering the amount of money that they have made and will continue to make as this goes forward. Is there something to be said for perhaps setting up some sort of a deal, so to speak, a relationship with these big grocery stores to support the local food banks?
There are some intermediary groups that actually do that. They are Food Banks Canada, which those of you that may go to Walmart in Stouffville may see at the checkout a little display that says, would you like to donate to Food Banks Canada? We are not currently a member of Food Banks Canada. They're not really a food bank. They don't give food to people. They're a purchasing organization. They purchase overstock of food, and then they sell that to food banks, and it does require a membership which has a fee associated with it. We feel that because of the generosity of the vendors and the people of Stouffville, we are not currently willing to pay a fee to have food delivered to us because we are able to source it directly from the local vendors. So even though No Frills is a very large owned organization and Metro is a very large owned organization, it comes down to the individual level, and the support that we receive from the owners and the managers locally has sustained us for 20 plus years. But if something should happen where we start to run out, we're more than willing to enter into relationships with larger organizations. And just, I think that the issue with grocery stores having record profits might not be the whole story. So at the moment, it's possible that grocery stores aren't having as many sales because they know that people need to buy their products and services. But at some point, things might start to run a shortage. Once consumable goods run out, we're not going to be able to source as much fresh produce. They may see a profit for now, but they may see a decline later. So I think they're probably hoping to prepare for that.
That would make sense, wouldn't it? That they're going to be stockpiling a little bit of reserves as well. I think that's kind of an era that we're all going into. Not that I'm going to have a basement full of toilet paper, but I'm probably going to have a few extra rolls on hand. I've recently purchased some food for my family that doesn't expire for 3 years, but still has some sort of nutritional value. And I think maybe that's the way of the future now, that we're all going to look at food a little differently.
Yeah, I think it could be. I was thinking today that we're getting back to maybe a bit of a different time where the smaller things are starting to become more important. I'm spending more time with my family at home. I'm kind of really making critical decisions. Do I really need this? Do I need to go outside to get this thing, or can I do without it? I understand that, yeast and in some cases flour and some of the more basic food ingredients are starting to run out. Whereas before we would go out and buy something that's ready made. Now we're trying to make it on our own. At the food bank, we had happened to launch a program where we were given a recipe of the week to our clients. So we gave all the raw ingredients and the instructions to make a recipe, which ends up stretching the food and the amount of calories per dollar to all of our clients. And we thought that was actually quite successful in that instead of just opening up a can of what have you, we can give you the raw ingredients to make a huge meal at approximately the same price as a single meal.
Fabulous.
So I think it's all moving towards that.
I mean, one of the things that I found kind of interesting through this whole thing is I did make one trip 3 or 4 weeks ago to Costco, and in the lineup on the way out, the number of people buying 50-pound bags of flour was astonishing. I've never seen that kind of purchasing before in my life. And they weren't even putting the flour on the shelves. It was on skids on the floor because people were buying it. But what they don't realize is that you have to have a place to store that flour. That flour can't sit on your kitchen counter. It'll be mealy. It goes bad.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be some tough lessons learned from all of this as well. Maybe we all needed to get back to a little bit stronger understanding of the basics of living and food and nutrition, and even just really what do we need to continue to move forward on a global scale. I feel like Canada is in a much better situation than probably most countries in the world. Although our news is dominated by Canadian and American situations, that's tends to be what we think about. But if you look across the world, I think we're doing okay. I think we need to continue to be diligent, but our supply chain seems to be intact. If you have some dollars, there are products that you are able to buy. You just need to make sure that you line up and respect certain social distancing type rules. Whereas there could be countries in the world where you might not have the funds to do what you need to do. And even if you did, the products and resources are not available for you to get what you need. We are not in that situation. Let's hope we continue not to be in that situation.
Food is kind of a global effort, I would say. Not situation, but more of a global effort. And we do get foods from all around the world. But we may go back to that old cookbook I have in the back of my closet, Eating in Season. That's an old Mennonite cookbook. But it tells you how to eat in the seasons in Canada. And that may be a valuable resource for me in the coming future.
Maybe. As you may know, I was the vice chair of the library board for many years. I'm on the library board. And I have a weekly call with a bunch of friends, and we just talk about the situation. And one of them mentioned, they said, in a situation like this, when people are running to buy goods, people should be running to their library or going online to figure out how to do things on their own and get the cookbooks out and how to do things around the house. And maybe the library is another resource that needs to be protected in times like this.
It sure is appreciated in times like this. I listen to talking books, and I don't do one of the apps. I actually go through the Stouffville Library, and my talking books saved my life.
And it will help us use up all that flour that might be sitting on the counter from Costco.
What is the protocol right now for food preservation at the Stouffville Food Bank? Like, you guys have to have temperature control and stuff like that, don't you? That sounds like an expensive endeavor.
It is, yeah. It's been unchanged though. So we luckily we are quite expert in dealing with preservation of food and storing and sorting. So we do have industrial quality refrigerators and freezers, most of which were donated over the past many years. We are looking to increase the number of refrigeration and freezer equipment that we have over the next short period of time, in anticipation that we will need to be very careful of our inventory, that we might not get things as quickly as possible.
It sounds like you guys have it well in hand.
We do, but we don't want to rest on that too. We really want the town to be aware that we are still here. We do need the support, and we are getting it, so we're very appreciative of that. I think in many people's mind, we are sort of first and foremost want to remind everybody that the food bank is, and always has been, and always will be, managed by 100% unpaid volunteers. So all of your dollars that are sent over to us go directly to the operation and to the provision of food to the citizens of our region, of Stouffville and our region.
That's good to know. And I think in the coming months, as we have talked about, there are some government programs in place to help people pay their rent if they've been laid off. But there will be that population that slips through the cracks and somehow doesn't get any more than they need just to pay rent. And they will be taxing the food banks in a way that we haven't seen the food banks taxed before.
And candidly, we want to see those people. One of our concerns is that people aren't coming because of maybe some social stigma or embarrassment, or if there's any challenges, we want to overcome that. If it's not possible to get a ride, then we have Roots, which is a York Region funded opportunity to get a ride to medical appointments and to food banks and things like that. There's public transportation. There are ways to get here. You can send somebody that can come and pick up on your behalf with some identification and a call ahead. We would feel very badly if there are people who are in need of food support that don't reach out to us and don't get it.
Well, let's hope that we can raise that awareness as well.
We've received some very heartfelt and heartwarming letters from individuals who have donated funds to us, that hand wrote to us that they had been a client many years earlier, and in a difficult time of their lives, we were there to help them with a smile on our face in a very non-judgmental way to get them through a shortfall, and now they're looking to give back. And we really appreciate those letters. It makes our volunteers feel so good. We've published some excerpts of those letters on Facebook, and I think it really resonates with the community that anybody could be in need at any given time. And it's great that there are groups that are there to assist when our neighbors and friends need it.
That's fabulous. And what a great way to end the show. It's been wonderful talking to you, Anand. Congratulations on your new baby, by the way.
Thank you very much. Lorenzo is doing great, and
he's a real cutie.
He is a cutie. He was born into a strange time, but I can't wait to tell him all about it when he gets older.
Oh, it'll be I was born in the year of the pandemic.
Well, Brenda and Jason, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for spending time with me. Jason, I wish you all the best as well through your health challenges.
Thank you.
Brenda, thanks for getting the word out on critical issues.
Thank you, Anand.
Thank you so much,
and
Anand.
You've been listening to Fresh Waves. Fresh Waves is a podcast on freshwaves.ca. So if you missed any part of this interview or you'd like to hear it again, you can always go to freshwaves.ca and find the interview there. Anand, if people want to get a hold of the food bank, can you give us the address just one more time?
It is 86 Ringwood Drive, units 24 and 25. The phone number is 905-591-4443. They can also reach out to my cell at 416-518-4437 or send an email to wsfoodbank1@gmail.com.
Okay, thank you. And we look forward to speaking with you again in the near future.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to it as well.
You've been listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and our technical producer is Jason Rumball. We'll be back again next week on Fresh Waves.